The following audio is via a Skype call.
Well, I started about 12 years ago. Someone stole my bicycle, and I said, I'm going to learn how to fight so I can catch him and beat him up, but I never did catch him. But I ended up the champ of the whole world.
Happy Saturday, happy weekend, everyone. I'm Gary Mantz.
I'm Suzanne Mitchell.
Together, we are Mantz and Mitchell. For the next couple of hours, we hope to be in your ears with something you find entertaining, and if our luck holds out, maybe a bit enlightening as well. Of course, none of that happens without the able efforts of our audio wizard, Mike Roberge, at the board. And happy birthday, Michael.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much. Yes, it's a wonderful day. It's a sunny day in the neighborhood, although a little bit sad with the passing of the champ.
Of the greatest. You know, I was just sitting here thinking, how do I mention this? How do I talk about this? Muhammad Ali has gone on to the great ring in the sky. The greatest is gone. And I'll tell you, Mike, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to feel the same way, it's just one of those days, one of those moments of passage that makes all of us feel a little bit older.
Yeah, and perhaps maybe a little bit better, too. I mean, rather than be saddened or mourning his death, how about we celebrate his life? Because he truly was a citizen of the world. And I never had a lot of heroes in my upbringing, but he was one. And what I learned from him and his presence was a matter of conviction and courage, because that's what his whole life was about. And he became such an elder statesman whose mere presence was uplifting without ever saying a word.
Well said, Mike. Interestingly enough, there was a quiet period where he wasn't in the news very much, and I didn't know but that he might not have already passed because he was suffering from Parkinson's for about half his life, and then he kind of reappeared with his Parkinson's on television and making appearances. So we had a chance to see him, and it just brings up all over again how careful you have to be with your head. And he took about 29,000 blows to the head over a lifetime.
By his own estimation.
Yeah, he did. But he was, as you mentioned, Gary, he was the champ. And I had a run-in. I got to meet him ever so briefly once.
Really?
I was in Los Angeles on business. This was back in the late 70s, probably 77 or 78, and at LAX, and he was walking down one of the concourses with a bunch of kids sort of following him and doing autographs, and he was having a great time, smile on his face. So I wandered over there, and he asked me if I wanted his autograph. And I said, no, I just really want to shake the hand of the champ. So we shook hands, and his hands were mammoth. And
wow.
My hands just sort of fit into his hand. And,
got lost.
Well,
huh?
And he sort of smiled at me, sort of gave me that sort of grin. And we just had that moment where we laughed, and I just said, I just want to shake the hand of the champ. So probably should have took the autograph, but it's a memory I'll never forget.
Oh, and what a great one.
Very
I think,
nice.
And we do have a lovely guest to bring on here momentarily. Let's not forget. But I will say this. Muhammad Ali and Elvis Presley, you could mention any of the Beatles as well, particularly John Lennon. When they met people, there was a transformative effect that they had just by their presence, and they knew it. You would find both Muhammad Ali and Elvis frequently surprising people. They'd show up at a radio station. They would show up at some public event. Elvis used to buy guys Cadillacs when they'd be walking the lot, and he would show up. And Muhammad Ali would show up at a school, for example, and surprise the hell out of some kid who was just open-mouthed with awe. There was a great candid camera spot about that one time. He kept talking about Muhammad Ali, how great he was. And the teacher says, there's somebody I'd like you to meet. And he turns around and Muhammad Ali is looking him right in the face. And the kid is just dumbstruck. And all he can think of to say is, do you want to meet my sister? So, yes, Muhammad Ali, forever the greatest. We are going to talk today to someone who is quite authoritative in her own way, talking about issues of reincarnation about the life between lives. This is definitely the metaphysical point of view, and this is the place for it. Also, her various teachings and the classes which are going to come up, they're all in the Puget Sound area. They are coming up. They are available to you, and we want to hear all about those. But for the moment, Suzanne, why don't you do the honors, and we'll hear a bit more about Mary Lee LaBay, and then we'll bring her on air.
Mary Lee LaBay, Ph.D., is the author of 5 books, including Hypnotherapy, A Client-Centered Approach, and Exploring Past Lives, Your Soul's Quest for Consciousness. She teaches the professional hypnotherapy programs at Bastyr University and Bellevue College, and also instructs professional trainings in past life regression and techniques of spiritual exploration. Beginning in the late 1960s with studies in tarot and astrology, Mary Lee continued her pursuit of the spiritual with intense training from the Celtic Druidic perspective, moving into hypnotherapy as a means to bring this work to the greater population. She followed up with a doctorate in behavioral psychology and certifications in neurolinguistic programming, Reiki, Gestalt, EFT, and applied kinesiology. She was named among the top 100 thought leaders of 2007 by Personal Excellence magazine and maintains a private practice in Bellevue, Washington. And we are very thrilled to have her on once again with us. Welcome to Mantz Mitchell, Mary Lee LaBay. How are you today?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just really excited to be back here with you two.
Mary Lee, on a day like today, and this happened when Prince passed as well, we had occasion to reflect on the nature of an individual life, an individual incarnation, if you will, a term with which you are quite familiar. And so when we bring someone like you on the air, this is fortuitous for us, Mary Lee. We're wondering, Suzanne and I talked about this over breakfast coffee, we wonder how it is that a single life can mean so much to so many, how so much accomplishment can happen in the course of a single lifetime without there being something that, as it were, you bring in with you when you are born. What is your perspective on that?
I agree with you. In each lifetime, we have the opportunity to deepen our awareness, expand our imagination, our creativity, have these wonderful experiences. And when we integrate them fully into our being and not just keep them on the surface or intellectual knowledge, when we really truly integrate these experiences, then we carry that into our next lifetime. And so people who truly do have an impact on the world tend to incarnate as people who also have an impact on the world. So you'll see famous people who incarnate again and are well known to the public. Now, that's not always the case. There are lifetimes where we might be a little more quiet or take a break from the limelight. Excuse me, I'm finishing up a laryngitis from about 10 days ago. So, but anyway, sometimes there's quieter lifetimes, but people who tend to have a big impact on the world or the public or even their community will tend to continue to do that because that's just part of their soul, their nature.
Well, that's a great answer. I'm sitting here thinking about what it is you were saying, and similar to our conversation about after Prince passed away, it would seem as though perhaps he had been a musician for many lifetimes. Same thing with a Mozart, might have been a musician for many lifetimes. And then there's like the full flowering in a lifetime. I can see it when it comes to music, to enhancing and deepening your interest in music. I scratch my head a little bit when I think that maybe there were many lifetimes when Muhammad Ali was a fighter or a boxer, and it's just not a world that I'm all that familiar with, and I'm not into it. And I'm saying, is that what you would want with your life? Is just like every lifetime to be a fighter until you became the best fighter? I mean, it just seems odd to me.
Well, it may not always express itself as a fighter. He might be an athlete, somebody who's very determined and stays physically fit and competes. And so in this lifetime, his opportunity came, I was just watching it last night on television, actually, where I believe it was a policeman that got him into boxing to help him to release all of his anger energy. And so that's how it went in this lifetime. But in other lifetimes, he might have other athletic talents, or maybe it's shown in a different way. He could be military or police or firefighter, something where that energy is expressed. But he was also a poet and a very creative person and a rebel. And, there were a lot of aspects to his character where in many different lifetimes that may come out in a different way. That might be expressed. Other aspects or other characteristics may be the ones that get expressed.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Mary Lee, you just gave me an idea. Since we're free to speculate, perhaps Muhammad Ali at another time and place would have been a great samurai warrior with with the flow of his body, his athleticism, and that tremendous skill set and dedication, plus his innate nobility, his sense of justice, and his willingness to fight injustice. And the poetic nature. He was a deeply religious man. He would have made a great samurai warrior in Japan in the feudal days. Right. And we get to work on it. One of the things I said in setting up this interview with you, Mary Lee, is that I wanted to talk about this concept of the life between lives. I've been told by some very good psychic mediums who come up with pretty good evidence that when we reincarnate, it usually takes between 80 to 100 years in Earth time before we take on a new body. 80 to 100 years, and we're pretty busy in the meantime. We're just not floating on a cloud playing a harp up there, unless that's our thing. And so I'm wondering, historically, people who have this kind of impact, they're determined to work on themselves. There is a drive to excellence that can show up from lifetime to lifetime if they are that driven, even in the life between lives, to achieve more and more.
True. Now, sorry about my voice. I would question, my experience is not that we have to wait 80 to 100 years. The time between lives, and I'll get back to your question about Muhammad Ali, but the time between lives is just as variable as the amount of time we are in the physical body. So some babies die before birth, they die at birth, they die as children. Some people die in their youth, and some live to over 100 years old. And so in the same way, between lives, that reincarnation pattern is determined by the individual, really, and is not, there's no rules about you have to wait 80 to 100 years. Some people incarnate right away. In fact, if we get over onto the weirder side of things, my mother, when she died, incarnated probably within 6 months. And my father, when he died, I've seen him incarnate twice in the past, I think he's been gone 13, 14 years. I know of at least 2 incarnations, actually a third, because the first ones didn't work out. And so he's been trying, and as far as I know, he's in that third body still. So even with my experience just with my parents, I know that they've incarnated. And by doing this past life work, I can also track. I've done thousands of past life regressions with different individuals as well as my own lifetimes. And sometimes they do wait between lives for a long time, and other times they come back right away, if not even immediately, depending on their focus and what they want to do, and if they're afraid of what's going on out there, or they just want to be in a body, or if they want to wait and take some time out. So that can be quite a variable.
Mary Lee, we've asked this question of other people before, and I want to get your take on it. What is the benefit of knowing what your past lives are? Why do we want to know what other incarnations we've had, and how can it benefit us in this incarnation?
Yes, that is a great question. Imagine if, at our age, I'm assuming you're over 50. I'm well over 50. Let's just say we're 50, and we'll split the difference here. And imagine if you had no idea what your first 40 years were. That just suddenly you kind of wake up, and there you are. You're maybe in a career, you have a bunch of friends, you've got a social life, you've got your interests, your talents, all of these things. You've got your quirks and your, self-sabotage, all of the things of your personality, but you have no idea where you came from. You have no idea what those first years were or how this developed or how you got here. That is very, very similar to being in this lifetime and not having a clue who you were, why your character is the way it is. I mean, we've just been talking about Muhammad Ali, Prince, Elvis, and we speculate, they must have had these talents. They must have had, these experiences and education that have driven them to being the greatness that they are. Well, it's okay to just live your life and have all of this come up spontaneously and you just go with the flow. But a couple of things. One is that self-knowledge allows us to develop the things, the talents and the characteristics that would be really beneficial to us. We can go back and find out when we were this, incredible artist or an amazing healer in other lifetimes and bring that knowledge and that experience into this lifetime to enhance our ability to do that here. Or maybe we were better psychics then or had better discipline or whatever, and we can bring those traits and develop them more fully here. But also on the other, so one is doing that. One is, another reason is a lot of times people have unexplained pain or tendency towards diseases or things that sabotage their efforts. And oftentimes by going into the past life, we can resolve traumas and problems that have occurred there. And so now the life is moving more smoothly here. And the third really important point is for those of us who are listening to your radio station, those of us who are interested in spirituality and evolving our soul, one of the most powerful ways to do that is to remember who we are, to be more conscious. And if we have a memory block to 99% of our self, of our memories, of our experiences, of our education, of who we are, 99.9% of that is gone to us because of our amnesia to these other lifetimes. That does not help our consciousness. So by going in and opening up that channel between our conscious mind and our subconscious memories and exploring those lifetimes, first of all, we end up expanding that energy channel. So the more you go in and look for those lifetimes, the more you understand them and the more you acquire the skills to sense that in everyday activities, see how these things are correlating to other lifetimes, that muscle gets exercised to the point where you can, look at a tree and remember 20 lifetimes when you've stood before a tree just like that. Or you meet a person and you can remember the relationship you've had with them, the good and the bad and the ugly, right? You understand their character more deeply. and you understand why you're either attracted or repelled from them. And so this is consciousness expansion, and I would say it's the number one way to do it. If we want to evolve our consciousness, this is a primary way to do it quickly. That's the long answer.
You know what? That was a great answer.
It was a complete answer.
I was hanging on every word you said. And one of the things that you said that was going off like a little bell in my head was this idea of being attracted or repelled to people that you meet. I understand there's probably a lot of elements to that, just including our natural vibration rate, the frequency at which we operate, and cultural things, and I mean just lots of little things. But there have been times when I have been like over the top, either attracted or repelled by somebody, and I go, what is that about? That I find that so fascinating.
Right.
And my only answer is that I may have had a past life with that person, and I'm reacting.
Absolutely.
I'm reacting to them either because, things were really great or things were really terrible.
Right, exactly. And sometimes we're attracted and we think, this is a love relationship. Maybe this is my soulmate. And and maybe we jump in with both feet and we get involved because there's such an energetic bond there. And then we go into the past lives and we figure out that maybe that wasn't all so pleasant. Maybe there's some really difficult karmic stuff to be worked out there. And all we feel is the strong energy, but we don't realize the nature of it. So I always tell my clients or, people that I know, if you're going to get involved with a relationship, at the very onset, come in and do a past life. Let's figure out what this relationship is and how you are related soul-wise, or are you, in fact, related soul-wise, or is this connection, the thrill of danger, but we're misinterpreting it. There's a lot of things. But sometimes we can also go into our past lives and find our soulmates. And so we go into several different lifetimes, and we can ask the subconscious mind to take us to the lifetimes when we have known our soulmate, and we can see the different relationships we've had with them. We can feel their energy. We can recognize their soul and their character patterns, and then we can identify them when our paths cross, if they cross in this lifetime, so that we are more fully informed as we proceed in these relationships.
I just find that fascinating.
It also seems to me that you can look at this from at least a couple of angles. If you are, for example, a thrill seeker, and you come into a given life and a body that's capable of chasing adventure, could you not draw to yourself people who are perfect strangers in every way, including at the soul level, who will help occasion those incidents, those events that bring you the thrills you are seeking, even if they're not in your soul group, they don't have a white picket fence in heaven next door to you or anything like that. But they are those souls who can help you achieve what you want in a given lifetime, even if you aren't connected to them in some special spiritual way.
Absolutely. And then we need to recognize that. I mean, maybe we'll develop a new relationship with a soul that's not really connected with us in any other way. But it's also important that if you are seeking more of a soul connection and to be reunited with your soul family, that you recognize that this person is here for that purpose, for that adventure purpose, and not to get maybe stuck in an eddy, in a whirlpool of relationship that really isn't supposed to be at that level. To keep it at the adventure. I see a lot of people And I have to say, they're typically women. We tend to, get attracted and think, oh, we could have a relationship. I don't want to be sexist about it, but I think we fall into that a little more quickly. And then when that person sees what the true relationship is, it is kind of a wake-up moment that, okay, wait, I attracted them for this purpose, but I don't have to manipulate it into a romantic relationship that really wasn't supposed to be.
Mary Lee, I feel like you're going deep into my own subconscious because I had an experience that's very much like what you're talking about. I met somebody years ago before Gary who I was attracted to so instantly and so strongly that I was just thrown off my game completely. It was like love at first sight. And I was a bad flirt. And I came to find out after several conversations, kind of casual conversations, that he was married. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, then he's not for me. That I just wasn't interested in, dating a married man. But I have to tell you, my attraction was so strong that I instantly thought I recognized him. And so years and years and years later, I met with a medium and I said, I had a strange experience many years ago of love at first sight. And this medium went into her space and she said, you did know him hundreds of years ago. And she said, he left you. You were in love with him then, and he left you and went to live in the next town somewhere and had a wife and children and all of that. But it was a romantic relationship that was never consummated hundreds of years ago. And then I had this echo, this repeat, having it happen a second time, where it's like I recognized somebody I was deeply attracted to, but it was never meant to be. And I didn't understand it at the time. My own moral sense said, I'm not going to pursue this because he's married. But to have somebody later say, yeah, you did know him and he left you. So here I was attracted again to that same energy, but the energy was no good for me ultimately.
Right. And when we're left in a past life with that, he left me, and that, it's almost like my vision of it is we almost, put our little hooks in that person and think, oh, we need to bring him back. And, it's unrequited love, all of this. So when our paths cross in this lifetime, we feel that those strings and that pull and, I need to attract them. I need to consummate it this time. And yet, if we have more information, it may or may not really be the right thing to do. It might just be an emotional echo, like you say, of that unrequited relationship from the past.
Well, I wish I knew you back then. I would have come to see you about it.
Yeah.
She was booked. Mary Lee LaBay is our wonderful guest of this hour. Always so much to learn when she joins us. She has some upcoming events, does Mary Lee, and we're going to hear about those on the other side of a short break. Stay tuned to Mantz Mitchell. You are listening to Seattle's home of alternative talk, AM 1150. From one lifetime to the next, we fight our battles, victories, defeat. We get to experience it all. At least that's what some past life regressionists would have you believe. They have a lot of research to back them up. They teach this, they practice this on an individual and group basis around the world. One such authority, Mary Lee LaBay, joins us once again this hour. Always happy when Mary Lee joins us on the show. Mary Lee, you've got some events coming up. I'm looking at this sheet that you provided. Hypnotherapy, Past Life, and Spiritual Exploration. That's coming up on June 21 to 25. There's a clarity retreat. Man, I could use that. Clarity Retreat and Culinary Adventure, for crying out loud. Put the two of those together in San Juan, Puerto Rico is coming up. And a 6-day training as well, Hypnotherapy Professional Training Intensive. That's coming up August 6th to 12th. I said these things were all local. Well, if you're in Puget Sound, Puerto Rico isn't too local, but it'd be a great place to take a vacation. Tell us about these individual events, what they constitute, and how you came up with this. This is quite a lot of variety.
Yeah, well, I worked very hard to keep from getting bored, I guess. I think I've learned that about myself. So I keep very busy. But yes, thank you for bringing this up. The Past Life and Spiritual Exploration course that's coming up June 21 through 25 here in the Bellevue-Redmond area is a professional training. So if you like the things we're talking about today, I'm training people to be past life regression specialists. They do not have to have any prerequisites to take this course, so please go to my website, click on calendar, look at the event, and go there and see the details, because this is an amazing experience, both personally and professionally. So a lot of the people take the course just for the personal experience. But you can also have the professional training as well. I also teach the Hypnotherapy Professional Training Intensive at Bastyr University. We have one this summer that is a 6-day training, so people from around the world can come and do a week in the Seattle area and get their 100 hours required for certification as a certified hypnotherapist, and that is always a fun experience. In September, I have the professional training again, but that one is over 3 weekends, so that's more for local people. I am doing a past life training in Canada through the Association of Registered Clinical Hypnotherapists. And anyway, the other one that you mentioned, because there's about 9 of them on my calendar, so you know, just go there and take a look at everything. But the Clarity Retreat and Culinary Adventure is going to be amazing. I'm partnering with my friend and colleague, Nicole Aloni. She's a very well-known chef and even prepared a meal for Julia Child for the Oscars. You know, she's done a lot of amazing work. And I used to live in Puerto Rico and worked in tourism. And I just recently went back and visited, fell in love with the city. They've done amazing things with Old San Juan. It's now a UNESCO preserved heritage site. And so we're taking a group down there. We're going to be doing personal development workshops so that we can look at clues to our purpose and, you know, get blocks out of the way. All of that. So we're going to have wonderful workshops. We're going to have a couple of workshops with local people, including a well-known poet from there and also a botanist who will give us a tour of her organic medicinal herb farm. And then we'll have hands-on experience creating food and beverages and remedies with these organic herbs. And then and then we're adding all the culinary part. So I've handpicked all of the restaurants and food experiences that we'll have as well. So that it's, you know, I know that when I go on tours, I love the experiences, but oftentimes they just take us into a cafeteria and give us watered down food that's, you know, not quite the local flavor. And what we've done on this retreat is, you know, we're working together with some of the shining stars chefs in this up and coming locally produced culinary scene. So we're really, really excited about it. Maybe you guys can come and join us, Gary and Suzanne.
I wanted to mention your website before we left that. It's MaryLeeLaBay.com for any of these items that Mary Lee talked about that you have some interest in. MaryLeeLaBay.com.
And that's Mary Lee LaBay is LABAY.com, MaryLeeLaBay.com. That's quite a website you have, too. I was there this morning. I think it's very well laid out. Did you set that up? Do you have some professional representation there?
I've done the design, and I do a lot of the updates, but I do have a tech person in the background who does the more difficult things, yes.
It's a great place to visit.
Yeah, thank you. We just renewed I just put a new homepage up, so thank you. The homepage is brand new, and I designed it. Thank you.
Very good.
I'm going to take this opportunity. Suzanne, I know you've got a head full of questions, but let me get these bats out of my belfry. Mary Lee, I have never understood, and I've talked to some of your colleagues about this as well, past life regressionists as well as any number of psychic mediums. There's something I don't get. Maybe you can finally get me to understand. If I am up there in the spirit world, I say up there, but I mean, it's really, I've been told it's as close as like an arm's length away. Really, it's another dimension. But when I'm in the spirit world, between incarnations, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Well, I want to be an athlete. Well, I want to be an actor. Well, I want to be an artist. Well, I want to be a teacher of some sort. When I am doing all this and setting up a life plan with the help of some very wise guides, isn't it self-defeating to go through a fog of amnesia so that I can take on this body and the plan is in the other dimension and I forget 99% of it? What good does it do me to plan in my life between lives if I'm only going to forget it anyway? I don't get that.
Right. Exactly. And you're feeding back into the point that I made earlier in that we need to exercise that muscle, because we do not have to forget and come into a fog of amnesia. That is not the ideal, normal human state. We have somehow, fallen into this, I think, through fear or whatever reason that we've fallen into this amnesia. It is the healthy potential of our humanity to actually come in fully aware. And I believe that babies do come in quite aware, but it's in those early years of learning to walk and talk and then having people, the cultural or family situation or just the busyness and attention being drawn elsewhere, that it's kind of filtered out of us. But again, we can do that in the sessions. We can go between lifetimes and reconnect with that knowledge. And what I thought your question was going to be is, how do you choose? And when you're between lives, if you know your purpose, then and your values, then you are going to have a very, pinpointed bullseye that you're going to be focused on in choosing your next incarnation. The problem is people go through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime not really knowing their purpose, not really understanding their values, and not really knowing who they are. And so you're a little bit more blown around by the winds, and, whoever makes a good suggestion, you just kind of follow that. And that's the work that I do. And even on this retreat, understanding your purpose, and I do this in private sessions too, really honing in on that and making a decision about what it is that you are to focus on. And that knowledge is within you. It is not something that we have to go seek in the Akashic records or from a psychic or from some man in the sky with a big book. It's within you. So you only have to know yourself in order to know your purpose and to be able to make these decisions properly. So that's
I love that.
More than an answer than you wanted, Gary.
No, it's a great answer, because as you were talking, this image in my mind of being in the spirit world with a lot of other souls and doing window shopping came to me. If we are indecisive, are we not unlike these people who window shop all the time, but what was that old song about Georgie girl always looking but never stopping to buy, the idea of window shopping. Well, it would be I'd love to be a great chef, but I'd really like to be a great baseball player, or maybe I want to be someone who has an ordinary job, but I have a great family life because I don't know what it is to have many children, for example. So I'll be born in India and I'll have a dozen kids or something.
Right.
But this is window shopping. Eventually, do we not have to choose in order to have enough focus to even justify an incarnation if a justification is even required?
Well, what I tell people in my workshops and in the sessions is how you make decisions in this life is going to really be reflective of your character and how you make decisions. And so if you always default to whatever is acceptable or whatever, people will like me if I make this decision, or the authority always tells me what my decision should be, or like you say, I window shop but never choose, or I choose but then I change my mind and I take it back and I want to choose something else. However you make your choices in this lifetime is going to be reflective of how you do it between lives. And if it's not working for you well here, we need to buckle down and find a better strategy for decision making, and one of them is the knowledge of your purpose, and the second one is the complete and clear knowledge of your ideal values. And these are two of the things that I put all of my clients through that are doing any length of program with me, and that's what we're going to address in the Puerto Rico retreat, is getting clarity around those two things. Not that they don't evolve over time, but we need to get at least a starting point, and maybe that is the accurate end all, but maybe it's a starting point, but it's better than nothing at all, right?
You said something earlier that really caught my attention, Mary Lee, and that is that we may actually remember our purpose when we come in, but as small children, we get that acculturated out of us. Mm-hmm. And how many times we have heard about small children who can talk about their past lives,
right?
Being a pilot or being a musician or being something that they remember. I mean, remembering who they were married to, remembering their names. And I think that's so fascinating that it's almost as though we have this agreement that we'll forget rather than having an agreement that we'll remember. So that, we have this, as Gary's saying, this fog of amnesia coming through. Well, maybe we don't have that when we're born. Maybe we all have some kind of clarity when we're 0 to 3 years old. But then, we're told that we don't have invisible friends and we're kind of laughed at with certain things we've said. I have noticed from time to time, very small children declaring something that turns out to be true. And a couple of examples. One was when I was in grammar school at a very early age, one of my classmates announced he was going to be a doctor, and it sent in huge ripples of laughter because he's a little kid and he was going to be a doctor. Like, you're going to play doctor? I mean, what do you mean? I saw him at Northwestern University years and years later, and he was in pre-med.
Good.
I mean,
Excellent.
he knew from second or third grade on what he was going to be. And same thing with my brother. He gave us gales of laughter when, as a very small child, he announced that he was going to have a lot of children. And we just thought that was hysterical. And now between he and his second wife, they have 6.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. Right. And he has 4 biological children and 2 stepchildren, but he had this idea from a very early age. So maybe there are a lot of things that we know when we come in that somehow get dismissed or forgotten, but maybe we do know a lot of what our plan is and what our purpose is when we first get here. And then we're told that's ridiculous.
Right. We are very pre-conscious for about, I don't know how many years into our lives. The numbers have varied between 11 and maybe down to 5 years, 6 years of life. We're very pre-conscious. We're very connected. And in this day and age, it probably gets kind of enculturated out of us by the time we get into preschool and school. So, those ages have gotten younger and younger and younger, where now you have to follow the rules and you have to think like everybody else and you have to, conform, I guess is the word. And, but nurturing that, I think as parents, if there's any young parents out there now, nurturing those conversations and expanding their imagination and their dreams about that and, really exploring that. I do have parents that bring their young children in to see me for various reasons, but some of it is to hear these stories and to, foster their knowledge and to really bring that out. A lot of times I just help to, I don't want to say train the parents, but to inform the parents how they can deal with their children to really bring these stories out instead of laughing and putting them down and saying, oh, that's just a pipe dream or that's silly, to allow that to really get expanded and nurtured so that imagination is there.
And we just have a few minutes left, Mary Lee, but I did want to ask you, is there one particular story of evidence that comes out that helped somebody therapeutically? Somebody, for example, that every time a tire backfires, they go crazy, and it turns out that they had been subject to gunfire at close range in war, for example. Does that come out during your sessions?
Oh, it comes out a lot. In fact, my mind is going, okay, which one would I talk about now? I think one just in general that has come out that's, I think, fascinating is a woman that had fibromyalgia. And that's a common complaint, and the medical community has a difficult time really helping people with it other than to just cover up the symptoms. And with this one particular lady, we just went into the pain. I didn't really know how I was going to work with her. So, in a session in the beginning, you're kind of exploring where do we need to go to resolve this issue. And we went into the pain, and immediately she started seeing things happening. And in her case, in her shoulder, she had had a wound there in a past life, an arrow shot, and then in another past life, she had been on like stadium bleachers that collapsed, and she was killed, and it had crushed her on that same side and that shoulder. And anyway, there were 2 or 3, 4 lifetimes on that shoulder where the pain was that related, lifetimes that related to injuries that needed to be integrated. We integrated all of those and resolved the problems there. The pain went away, and then the pain moved. And then again, we went into 2, 3, 4 lifetimes, let's just say on our hip, and then on our knee, and in different, wherever this pain was moving. And it was almost like the subconscious mind was trying to get her attention so that she would go into each of those lifetimes to resolve the traumas that had occurred there. And her subconscious mind wanted her to be fully alert of all of this. Anyway, at the end of the session, she said, this is the first time in, a dozen years I have been pain-free from the waist up. And so she had no pain in the upper part of her body. And, so we would have to, we would proceed in another session doing more of that work. But I thought that was really eye-opening and mind-boggling myself that we could do this through, to relieve that much pain through the past life regression.
And that is a service to humanity right there.
Right, a good healing modality. And once again, if you would like to connect with Mary Lee LaBay, maybe for a personal session or maybe for a workshop.
Sign up for this hypnotherapy, past life and spiritual exploration coming up June 21 to 25.
You want to go to www.maryleelabay.com. Mary Lee, I am so glad you joined us today. I told Gary I was looking forward to our program today. 2 great guests from the Puget Sound area. And thank you so much for taking the time and being with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's always my pleasure. I'll look forward to our next conversation.
As will we. Absolutely. Mary Lee LaBay, everybody.